the movie Sound of Freedom. I want to talk about it because it looks very, very good. It has a very, very a good message that we should be sending today, which is that child trafficking is bad and it should be stopped and prevented. But the problem is this movie was made about 4 or 5 years ago, back when it was still being produced through Fox. Well, Disney, of course, purchased 20th Century Fox, and then they decided to just shelve the movie.
Yep.
Do you have it? Like, one of the things that I thought was interesting is, like, look, when you go through a merger like that, a lot of people were excited about the fact that Disney was now going to have possession of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Right? They were very excited about that. But there was also talks at the time. They're like, how is this not some type of like government? Like, you know, the government has to come in with mergers or with buyouts like that, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have what's like antitrust stuff. So there's antitrust stuff, and people are like, is Disney getting too big for its britches? Look at the size of this company now. Maybe a good bit of promotion you could have done for yourself is like, look, we bought this company and we feel strongly about the message behind this film. Maybe they should have pushed it to the forefront and been what made it one of the first things they marketed.
They feel strongly about the message, but it doesn't mean the way that you think it means.
My question here, as I'm sitting here, is I'm like, how is it that your company is going through a scandal not a scandal necessarily, but a very public argument with the state of Florida over the fact that the governor of Florida is accusing you of grooming children? And you have a movie that is ready to go. You could drop this at any time, Disney Plus, theaters, limited network release, anything. How much do you have to like child trafficking to not put the movie out? Like, this is the easiest PR tool anyone has ever been given. And Disney's like, I would rather keep this on the shelf than put it out and have zero bad come of it. There is no negative to putting this film out. And Disney's like, sitting on the shelves.
No, there's no negative for normal people.
Exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Is if you're a normal person, there's no problem with putting this movie out.
It's pretty clear that the people involved are not normal people.
If you're a lizard, if you're secretly a lizard underneath the CEO mask, and you actually support this type of stuff because you need your adrenochrome supply replenished, then you wouldn't want this movie to come out. Obviously, I think the timing on that might be a little bit off, because likely if it's coming out now, it was probably sold off and optioned to other places before they got in the fight with DeSantis?
Yes. I believe it says that after it was shelved, it took them about a year to get the people who made it took them a year to get the rights back.
Oh yeah, I saw advertisements when they started pushing this back in like 2020 on Instagram, when they launched the Instagram for this movie. And I'm obviously I'm a stan because I'm a big Jim Caviezel fan. Person of Interest is my favorite show of all time. The movie Frequency. Jim Caviezel is a fantastic actor, and he's been, for all intents and purposes, pretty blackballed from Hollywood after Passion of the Christ. After he did Passion of the Christ, nobody wanted to touch him with a 10-foot pole until he did Person of Interest, which was a Jonathan Nolan production. And he has since been one of those people where he campaigns fiercely for the protection of children. He does kind of make the mistake of getting a little bit bombastic with his language, which makes it hard for people to for normal people who are not in tune to the culture war or religious. They hear him say things like, he's like, we're fighting evil. Like, he says stuff that's inherently true, but if you're not read in on what's going on, it can sound a little out there. Yeah, he had one where he did this thing on Twitter, and it, like, I know what's going on, but it sounded a little weird to me. And like people he had worked with before, like Kirk Acevedo, was just like, dude, what happened to you?
There's a $20 super chat.
But nothing happened to him. The problem is just that other people don't understand what's going on in the world right now. Perturbed Alpaca says, tax return chat. Awesome. Maybe one day I'll join the tax heroes wall, but for now, I need to be free to prepare the homestead. Until then, have some of that money that should have been in my pocket anyways. Also, the mouse is a PDF file. That is possible.
A good way to put it. PDF file.
That's Mary's. Mary came up with PDF
it.
file.
Good job, Mary. That's a good one.
So, look, I think it does seem like a slam dunk that you go ahead and you make this movie. You have this movie, you get ready to come out, and then you say, look, guys, like, we're permitting the guns. Have you ever noticed whenever a TV show, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of TV or have watched a lot of TV in the past, anytime they would do topical episodes, they would have like if you do an episode, like there's an episode of Veronica Mars that has to do with like gambling, and at the end of the episode, it says like if you or somebody you know has gambling addiction.
Like, those kind of things are good. Like they would have those at the end of like all kinds of sitcoms and stuff like that. They would have touch a serious topic, and it would be one of the more sober, episodes. And
problem is now every episode would need to have it because all they talk about is annoyingly topical stuff all the time.
I do have to say, I think this show needs a drinking game for every time you mention Veronica Mars.
Like, it goes through phases. So like if I'm in the middle of a show, it becomes the focus of like every example I give until I start watching another show again. And then that show becomes there was a time when I was rewatching The Wire where everything I related to had to do with The Wire.
Oh, it was by no means a criticism. I do it with Lord of the Rings all the time. It's become a joke on our show, The Weird Bible. Like that has become a joke, is that I always bring up Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. But, so like they could very easily have done like, look, Disney's partnering with this film studio to combat human trafficking, to combat child labor, child trafficking. But you know what? I just don't know if they want to do that. They're probably in league with the Girl Scouts. They like child labor.
Also, at any point,
the children do yearn for the mines.
Yes, the children yearn for the mines.
And we're not even. And by the way, I'm being very generous with my language here. I'm saying child labor, but we know that that's not what they're talking about here, because that's not what this movie is about.
No.
This movie is about a guy who becomes a vigilante after rescuing a child from a.
I'm going to hell.
Go for it.
Oh no! Why? Just come on.
Go ahead.
Is the labor backing that thing up?
Oh no!
Man,
I told you.
That's wrong.
Someone slapped Phil on the wrist, but not me. I'm scared. He's kind of buff.
The film follows the story of Operation Underground Railroad CEO Tim Ballard. Has since picked up by Angel Studios. He goes and becomes a vigilante, and I'm very much looking forward to this. It's coming out over the 4th of July.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Going and seeing it in Minnesota while I'm back there. He says he previously pitched viewers to invest in the P&A for the film. Harmon returned the story about how the film was shelved by the Walt Disney Company. Going back to that story, Fox was originally going to distribute it. Then Disney buys Fox. For whatever reason, Disney decides to shelve it. And it took you and your team a year to get the rights back. This film was made 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this film should have come out ages ago.
Well, and that's the other thing that I think about. One of the biggest wins Trump had as a president was his anti-child trafficking stuff. I mean, I think it was up 800%, something like that, for arrests. He founded a new presidential task force to handle the missing and murdered indigenous women and girls problem, which is something that we've talked about extensively over on my channel. But like there was a real moment for left and right unity in the culture war and in politics and in everything when this film was made in 2018, 2019. Like they had an opportunity to say, let's come together, let's put aside the political infighting to do something good, to put something out that's going to really make people care about this issue. And I really cannot think of a way in which this was not a deliberate decision made by people who want this to continue. Yep. Like that's
especially for corporations
I refuse
as Disney, which have CEOs and workers at the highest levels of the corporate structure.
And what were they going to lose?
Who make that much money? Who are clearly, it is what it is.
Were they going to lose by releasing this film? The worst thing that happens is it's a bad movie. Yeah. And people are like, Disney released
made a bad movie. Shocking.
It's like, there are a lot of bad Disney movies out there.
And even then, they can be like, well, it was a Fox movie. So
yeah,
it
exactly.
Doesn't matter. So
we picked it up during the merger.
Yeah.
Like there was absolutely, and this is actually starting to make me angry. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna meditate for a second.
For it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I look at this and I have no way of being charitable when I look at this situation. You had a movie. It's not like this was in the beginning stages of production. It was going to cost them $50 million to make. And so they went, you know what? This wasn't really in our plan. We're going to put it on the side. This is a movie that was made. It was ready to go. It was about something everybody can agree is bad. And it could have actually been a legitimate force for good in the culture. And instead, some bigwig at Disney went, no, I like my little private island down in the Bahamas too much, and I like what goes on there, so I don't want to stop this from happening. Like, I cannot see a way in which this was not a decision made by somebody who is a pedophile.
if not that, it's like, what then why, right? Like,
There's no other reason.
Like, you could make the argument like, look, it's not on brand for us. And it's like, well, your brand is about you, like, literally, it's like we're the happiest place on earth.
What brand does Disney have? Disney owns everything.
I know, right?
And that's the thing. Disney had it. They did not have to release it as a Disney movie.
Yeah,
it could have been as an ABC movie, 21st Century Fox. Could have been any subsidiary of Disney.
Yeah.
Did not need a Disney logo on it, and they chose not to show it. There is no charitable reason.
Searchlight Pictures, 20th Century. Like, there's an endless amount of ways you could
have sold it off to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what ends up happening is it takes forever to get the rights back. And
exactly. But that's the thing is, like, they didn't even give them the rights. Like, the movie was made. Disney didn't pay anything for it.
Yeah. It's shocking to me that something like this, especially for something where it's like, I just see it as like remember when Ricky Gervais did the stand up during and he talked about it. He's like, Apple talking down to you while using children, like child labor in the mines. There you go. Children, mines, bad.
Yeah.
And it's a way to get great PR at no cost. And it's just shocking that they wouldn't go and do that, especially since for me, I would have liked to have seen this come out when it was actually designed to come out, because like you said, there was a time right then where we could have actually maybe used a little bit of unity in the culture. And is there a few things that people should be able to agree on more than the abuse of children is abhorrent and one of the worst things that's ever happened to,
what do we need more than anything right now?
Yeah.
Is
stuff we can all agree on.
Something
stuff
we can
that brings
unite
people
over
together.
Because right now we are actually staring down the barrel of both the possibility of World War III and a U.S. Civil War.
Yep.
Like we are looking down the barrel of that within the next 20 years. And instead of going for unity, it's let's shelve the child trafficking film because it's not our brand. No, they want this to continue.
All right, Phil, would you be surprised if Disney had put something like this out? Would it seem like something that they would have released?
I mean, I would definitely be surprised if anything that draws attention to child trafficking, like or child abuse, like I don't expect any major studios to put it out because it implicates themselves.
Yeah, like it's like they don't want to shine the light too hard lest it come back on them. And I said, like, there have been movies, we talked about it recently, like people were pointing out there are some movies that covered it, but it seemed like most of the examples that I saw were from the early 2000s, and they've become less common and more sparse since then.
Yes, and there's also the fact that even if it does get made and released, it doesn't get the same kind of attention. I mean, you look at what happened with Cuties. For Netflix, and there was a lot of pushback against the people that were saying that Cuties was bad, and that would honestly, the fact that it was made in France came up and stuff, and there was all kinds of apologia for the producers and stuff. This is not something that is surprising to hear about Hollywood. So I don't think that there's going to be any studio that's going to want to get behind this and really push for some kind of actual real world effect.
It really is a backwards culture that we live in. It really is a backwards culture.
I mean, look, I know that, like, I don't want to get off on a tangent and stuff, but
I love it when people tangent.
Well, all of this stuff is completely and totally justified if you are looking at like queer theory and basically the cutting edge sexual sociology and stuff like that. There are people on the left that don't believe that children are innocent. They don't believe in innocence. They don't believe that children should not be exposed to sexuality.
Evil.
And, yeah, well, I mean, evil, gross, whatever you want to call it. But there are people that write books about this stuff. You can read the books by Michel Foucault. You can read the books by Herbert Marcuse, by Judith Butler. These are people that you can go and find their books, find their stuff. Even Sigmund Freud touched on this kind of stuff. Like Sigmund Freud, Marcuse, and Foucault are probably the most influential philosophers of the last half of the 20th century. Actually, Sigmund Freud is probably earlier, but either way,
I think.
Who?
Sartre.
Sartre. These are all people that cover these topics, and the people that are reading these books and reading this philosophy, they internalize it and they believe it's true, and they want to teach children sexuality. Mark Hughes talked about intergenerational relationships. Judith Butler talked about intergenerational relationships, and what they mean is adults having sex with children. If you look at a lot of the queer theorists that are like modern queer theorists, they're writing books that justify sex with children. There's this person called Little Miss Hot Mess. You can Google.
Oh, I
her.
saw you post something.
Yeah, and it's a trans woman, I believe, might possibly be a drag queen, so I could be misgendering them, but it's not intentional for a malicious reason. But Little Miss Hot Mess writes stuff saying, kids are kinky, children are kinky, blah, blah, blah. And these are real. These people are taken seriously. I understand that most people don't get interested in philosophy and they don't read philosophy. You can ignore philosophy, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring philosophy. And the consequences of ignoring philosophy is thinking that you're insulated from things like academics justifying child rape. And it's a real thing. So if you want to fight back against this stuff, your best bet is to spend some time learning about what is being taught in the humanities departments. Learn about queer theory. Learn about the cutting edge of human sexuality, which is that's what they'll call it, but it's literally just justifying spending all day thinking about your own genitals. So
unreal.
It is. It's disgusting, but but it is out there to find. It's not like I'm the guy that's making up this stuff. Go find the resources. I've already listed a bunch of names you can go and read. So
another thing that was interesting about this movie is that the guy who it's based on, Tim Ballard, insisted that Jim Caviezel play him in the movie, even though the producers didn't want him to do it because of all the baggage that comes with hiring Jim Caviezel.
It's pretty wild that playing Jesus in a movie is affecting his career, 20 years later?
Well, it's not just that. There was also this. So there's an interview with Jim Caviezel about the film concerning its subject matter, its themes, and distribution difficulties that leaked online.
Hey, we got a $20.
Okay. Oh, yeah. We got a $20 super chat from Perturbed Alpaca. He says, more tax return money for Aiden's generous prediction for the length of time until the Boogaloo Part 2.
Whoa.
I hope I have 20 years to prepare.
I tell you what.
I might have been being optimistic.
Yeah.
20 years to prepare. I mean, I'm not in any way the guy that's looking to set it off, but if it's 20 years from now, I'm gonna be useless.
Yeah. So here's what it says.
You can write the new anthem. You can write the new anthem.
You're going to be protecting me. I'm not going to be of any use.
So it says an interview with Jim Caviezel about the film concerning its subject matter, themes, and distribution difficulties was leaked online and became subject of controversy as some of the things discussed reinforced concepts the far-right conspiracy theorist group QAnon often focus on. Mainstream media outlets such as CNN ran stories debunking all of the rhetoric discussed by Caviezel, and several entertainment industry professionals who criticized the character of Caviezel and expressed disinterest in working with him in the future. Not long after that, the talent agency that represented Caviezel ended their contract with him. Here's a funny story about Jim Caviezel as well. He would argue with a pro-choice friend about he's pro-life because he's extremely religious, and his friend said, he made the typical argument. He was like, "Why don't you adopt then?" Right? They always make that argument.
Yes, they do.
Why don't you house illegal immigrants in your house?
He adopted. He said, if you adopt a child from, I think it's China, I'll change my stance to pro-life. He adopted 2 children from China, and the guy refused to change his stance.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
They're all liars.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a lot of Christians in the world who are really bad at it, but when I hear something like that, I'm like, thank God for people like that who really do put their money where their mouth is.
It's like when they were saying Amy Coney Barrett was like the face of white supremacy, despite the fact that she'd adopted children from Africa.
Yeah, that's when I knew that our tenure as a country where reasonable discourse existed was over, was when they started going after Amy Coney Barrett for all of these things.
She's so benign.
She adopted those children out of her own ego. It's like, okay,
you can't
That's
win.
because they're not. That's because they're not principled. It is all power. The left only views The left views political discourse as an exercise in power. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about honesty. And the reason they don't care about the truth is because they don't believe the truth exists.
Nope. It's functional to whatever they
Exactly.
need it to be. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.